Rules aren't meant to be broken. They're meant to be rewritten altogether. If you're ready to play by your own rules, if you are a rebel with a cause, I think you'll love it here. Bring a friend, sit back, and enjoy another episode. Or don't. Remember, you write the rules here. You make me want to. Hello, my love. You are now tuned in to another episode of Rima's Rules. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about. This particular video is for a very specific subset of people. It is for my girls who are the worst texter in every single one of their friend groups. If you're not that person, this is your one and only trigger warning, okay? Like, this video very well may trigger you. Just know that I told you not to stay, okay? This video is gonna be long, as you could see. I put a lot of thought into the psychology of what got us here to begin with, why we are this bad texter or bad friend or avoidant, but more importantly, the 7 rules of healthy friendship that I'm personally following. I'm not even gonna lie to you though, this is about to be harsh, but very, very good. Last year, I saw this TikTok that was going pretty viral. This young woman who was recounting a conversation with her therapist where she was basically venting about how inconsistent her friends are, how they don't really text her back, how it makes her feel very exhausted and just isolated to not feel like she has someone that can respond back quickly. She even, in the caption of that video, basically spoke about a specific friend who she's like, I really want to message her and let her know how pissed I am at her, but newsflash, she won't read it. As the bad texter in my friend group, I immediately rushed to the comments just to kind of validate what I already knew, which at the time was that everybody hated people like me. And for the most part, that is what I found in the comments of everyone like agreeing with her and telling her like, it's just so not okay when they don't respond and they say that they didn't see your message until later, but blah, blah, blah. But then there were a couple brave souls of people who commented, as the bad texter that you're talking about, I am here to assure you that it's not personal or intentional. And someone else commented something to the effect of, we're not responding to make you feel that way. Oftentimes we just feel so overwhelmed or whatever. And so I'm like, dang, not me kind of feeling a little bit seen by these people. Like, there's more people like me out there. And so upon further reflection of all of this, that's what inspired me to make a video addressed to the shittiest texters in each friend group, because I want us to understand ourselves better so that we don't feel shame when other people don't quite get it. Let's get into the psychology of being a bad friend. Literally, as I'm recording this, I'm trying not to look at my closet in front of me because it's in serious need of reorganizing. All of my drawers are kind of like, the stuff isn't folded properly, it's not organized, it's not color coded the way that I want it. And the reality of this situation is, if I just devoted 5 minutes to each drawer or less, I would have it done. But I've convinced myself that I can't get started on this task, and this might sound familiar to you, until I can look through every single piece of both mine and Ahmed's garments and make it all look perfect and done. Like, I shouldn't even focus on one drawer until I have the time and energy to do the whole entire closet. And I've also convinced myself that I don't have the time and energy to do that because it would require an entire day. So I likely will not get to it until I have an entire day to devote to it. But the other thing is, as somebody who has spent basically my whole life with this like perfectionism inspired procrastination, I've learned how to make things look really, really good and polished from the outside, even as like they're internally overflowing and struggling. And so with that being said, I just want to start this video off by letting you know that we are my closet. Okay, that is what we are as people who have this overwhelm, as people who are easily flooded, you know, by the thoughts, the questions, the stressors in our brain. We are my closet. We look strong, we look good, we look polished, we look like we can do a lot, when in reality, the thought of responding, yes, a 10 to 15 second task to someone's text message can just send us overboard. You're sitting there calculating how you're going to be perceived, you're calculating what angle you want to respond from. And even with the people in our lives who do not require any like emotional or mental gymnastics, we are not showing up for ourselves oftentimes, again, hence overflowing closet, in order to extend any energy to somebody else. And look, I just want to be real with you. I'm not telling you this so that you could feel sorry for yourself. I'm not saying any of this so we can throw any pity parties. That would imply that you're powerless in this situation. And as we get through this video, you will very quickly see that you are not at all powerless in any of this. I'm just trying to help us, people like me, the bad texters, better understand ourselves so that we can kind of resolve that guilt and shame and resentment or whatever that is ultimately just making us feel sorry for ourselves and feel like we're helpless. That's it. Okay. My only goal in this video is to help you better understand why you do or don't show up the way you do or don't show up. Relationships, including friendships, of course, are really just about compatibility. You know, there's that quote, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Like when you think about, for example, like a Chick-fil-A sandwich. Depending on who you ask, there are going to be very different responses to the question, is this good or bad? But what's fascinating is even when you ask the same exact person about that Chick-fil-A sandwich, depending on the context, it's going to determine whether or not it's good or bad. Like if I'm just thinking about a cheat meal that I'm dying to eat, the answer is they're not good, they're great. But when I'm thinking about what's going to align me to my health and fitness goals, one could argue that the spicy chicken sandwich is bad. My whole point is that you are not a bad friend. I kind of want to resolve this good or bad conversation because it creates this binary that there's a right or wrong way to show up. And that's something I really struggled with for a long time. You are not a good or a bad friend. You are incompatible with certain people, and that will always be true. So when we talk about me as a friend, if you're asking, should I be the person that you call when you're getting kidnapped? I'm trash. Like by that metric, I'm trash. If you're asking who's the person that you should be live texting on a date, I'm also trash. Like I am not that person. You're literally better off calling your ex, okay, your toxic ex, if you're getting kidnapped, than calling me because there's a high chance that I'm not going to pick up my phone. I'm not the accessible friend. If you're looking for a friend that's going to get you to think about things differently, if you're looking for a friend who has good judgment, who takes their own advice, then by that metric, I'm quite literally, I can't think of anyone better than me. If you're looking for someone who keeps it real with you, even and especially when it's something you don't want to hear, I can't think of a better friend than me. And so I just want to put that out there to help you really dissolve the notion that you're a bad friend. Okay, that doesn't mean you're not accountable for your behaviors. We'll get into that, I promise you. It just means that you are not attracting the kinds of people who value what you have to offer, okay? I want to talk about what boundaries for bad bitches looks like. I remember my friend in high school came up to me to tell me that our other friend was mad at me. And I responded like a bad bitch. Like I really wouldn't even change anything about how I responded at that time because I just looked at her and calmly said, well, I mean, if she doesn't tell me that directly, I'm just going to pretend we don't have a problem. And some people might hear that and feel like I'm being non-confrontational or avoidant. Rest assured, I'm very confrontational. But the thing is, like, it wasn't my problem. I just don't believe in childish behaviors. I don't believe in babying you. And I certainly don't want to reinforce the notion that if you have a problem, you're going to get my attention by giving me the silent treatment. I have become a grown woman that still plays by that rule. Like, if you have a problem with me and you don't speak up, then we literally don't have a problem. Like, I'm not going to play this game. But the other thing is, when I have a problem with someone, if I don't feel ready to tell them, which is valid and real for so many reasons, I don't get mad that they don't come knocking on my door and asking why I'm being distant or asking why I act like I have a problem. Like, I don't expect other people to baby me either. Like, if I had my feelings hurt and I don't feel ready to confront you about that, I fully expect you to play dumb until I decide to be a big girl and come and tell you what my issue is. I will say I do think that's why I was like a little bit annoyed of that TikTok, mostly because of her caption. She has every right to feel how she feels. But at the point where she said, I'm mad at her and I want to text her, but she won't read it. So she instead took to TikTok and like posted a viral video to kind of like shit on her friend. I don't know. I just felt like that was corny in my opinion. I know a lot of people were like, yeah, I totally get you. And I personally was like, you're being childish. You have every right to go and talk to your therapist. You can literally hire a therapist just for this one issue and it would be nobody's business. But for you to be mad at this person actively, fine, be angry at them. But almost harbor this resentment towards them, to me, is where I draw the line. And let me tell you why. I don't know about you, but I can literally feel when somebody resents me. Like this whole thing that I talked about when I was 16, I can feel when someone's silently mad at me. Like it just, the energy is so much louder than them even yelling at me. Like I feel it. As I get older, I'm starting to feel like projecting your resentment out to other people, I feel is low-key abusive. Like we can all agree the silent treatment is a form of emotional abuse because you're trying to ice someone out to try to control them. I also feel like when you resent somebody and you're trying to like make it their problem, that's very manipulative, if not emotionally abusive as well. When I feel that resentment, I truly liken it to how I imagine it feels when someone has a voodoo doll and they're just like poking holes in it to cause me pain. And I think that's why the younger version of me maybe didn't have this language, but that's why I chose to just compartmentalize it and make it their problem. Because when you choose to be someone's friend and get really mad at them for something, but then also choose not to talk to them about it, you are forcing them into this place where there is no solution. And that's how I feel about resentment. I feel like resentment is just this illusion that you don't have a choice. She has every right to be angry at having friends who don't text at the cadence that she desires. But to see that behavior repeatedly, and feel like it is still your right to be mad at them while still deciding to be their friend, to me just seems very weird. It seems very manipulative. It seems very self-righteous. So if I'm being 100% real with you, like when I sense that somebody resents me and there's this like silent, angry thing that they have, it's like a mousetrap. It's like waiting for me to talk to them so that they could trap me in this little thing. It feels like they're not solutions oriented. They're not actually trying to resolve the issue. Otherwise they would have confronted me about it or forgotten about it or decided not to be my friend. Like there's so many solutions that make sense, but the one that they're in to me doesn't make sense. So with full honesty, when I do sense that someone is starting to resent me but also not trying to do anything about it, I do start avoiding them. Like truly, I do. The distance that made them mad to begin with starts to become real because I feel unsafe in that conversation. I feel like they are committed to misunderstanding my intentions. And so I stay far, far away because I'm not going to knock on your door so you could welcome me in to beat me up. Like that, to me, that just doesn't make sense. If you have a problem, invite me over. Otherwise, we don't have a problem. This brings me to something called the anxious avoidant trap. Now, this might not be relevant to everyone. Not everyone who's a bad texter is avoiding anything. Some people just suck at texting and that's fine. But several years back, actually, I was in a toxic relationship and I decided to pick up the book Detached, like most girls in a toxic relationship do. I learned a lot about attachment theory, which I didn't realize applies so much to really every relationship. It's not just romantic ones. There's different attachment styles. And basically all this means is just the way that you are comfortable receiving or giving love. You know, you have the securely attached people. They're the boring ones. They're okay giving love. They're okay receiving love. They have no issues with that. Then you have the anxiously attached people. Let's say you text the guy that you like. You guys are texting back and forth. And if he goes like an hour without responding, you create this mountain of stories as to why he didn't respond to you. And then the second he responds normally, those stories just wash away. That's like one symptom of an anxiously attached person. You start kind of creating these anxious stories in your head that often aren't really based in reality. Avoidantly attached people are people who they don't let people get too close to them, or when people start to get too close, they push them away. Now, more important than like these one-line descriptors of each one, the most fascinating thing was this idea that there's this anxious avoidant trap. And what that means is there's almost this like moth to a flame dynamic that exists between these two people where they are constantly attracted to each other precisely because the other person cannot give them what they need. Now, if that makes absolutely no sense to you, why would you ever get into a relationship with the exact person who you know cannot give you what you need? Then you don't understand how your subconscious brain works, because what you manifest or what you attract in your reality is not about what you think you believe. It's about the actual beliefs that you hold subconsciously. And oftentimes the beliefs that we hold subconsciously are not things we actually want in our life. So put simply, you don't attract what you want, you attract who you believe you are. To take it a step further, each person, the anxious and the avoidant type, have this belief about the world. You subconsciously go out into the world to try to prove those things to be right. The anxious person, and listen closely, believes nobody will ever be able to give me all the love and attention that I need. The avoidant person believes everyone is trying to infringe on my boundaries and my space. And so obviously they go out, and maybe not obviously, but like based on what I just said, it seems obvious now to you why when they go out into the world to prove that belief true indirectly and of course unconsciously, they end up with the person that would guarantee that that belief stays alive. The anxious person suddenly ends up with someone who can't give them what they need. And then the avoidant person, of course, ends up with someone who's always trying to take more than what they're willing to give. I wonder if this brings up anything for you, because I know for me, it wasn't as true or like clear cut for me in relationships. But when it came to friendships, I realized I had a lot of avoidant tendencies. When I would sense people trying to get too close to me, it would make me very uncomfortable. I was unknowingly attracting the type of friend who would want more of me than I was willing to give. So just keep that there. Without further ado, I know we talked a lot about like the psychology behind why we are the way we are. But now I want to help you kind of break this cycle. I want to help you understand that it doesn't have to be this way. You don't constantly have to feel like the bad friend. You don't constantly have to be around people who judge you and make you feel like you're not doing enough or that you're inadequate. But before I could do that, I had to help you understand that you are a very powerful creator of your reality, even if it's not the reality that you want. That could be a whole nother video for another day though. Here are my 7 rules on healthy friendships. Number 1 is a fan favorite, and it is that resentment is just an illusion that you're powerless. I talked about resentment in my last video about decentering my man, and you guys really loved my takes on resentment. So I do think I'm just gonna make a whole video about resentment at some point. I think it is such a powerful tool that is being used and abused. Let me explain. You guys know that I speak in analogies and metaphors at this point. And all I want to say to you is that if you decide to bend over backwards for anybody, you cannot be angry at them when you get scoliosis, okay? Like when you need to go to the chiropractor because you can't stand up straight, you cannot be mad at the person that you decided to bend over backwards for. They didn't ask you for that. You are always making a choice. In number 4, we're going to get into why you resent people when you bend over backwards for them. So just hold that thought. But the whole point here is that you're always making a choice. I'm going to call myself out here because what is so funny about me is when it came to past friendships, failed friendships that I had, and I could sense people resenting me, I started resenting them for resenting me, which is literally the most hypocritical, weird thing to possibly do until I reminded myself, I don't have to care that they're mad at me. Like I am making a choice to care about their opinion of me. And I am certainly making a choice to internalize their opinions that I'm a bad friend or a bad person or whatever my imagined opinions that they had of me were. Now, I know that it sounds so much easier. It is so much easier said than done to just stop caring what people think of you. Like that didn't happen for me overnight. It's not like me saying that made me just suddenly stop caring about their opinion of me. However, instantaneously in that moment, reminding myself that I was making the choice to care about them helped me resolve that resentment right there. The second that you feel resentment, don't judge yourself for having that resentment. That's definitely not what I'm recommending here. Understand that it's a map. It is just a little pin, like you just drop a pin. If you feel yourself resenting something or someone, I just want you to ask yourself this question. It's going to unlock everything for you. How could I have better stood up for myself in this situation? How could I have better honored my boundaries in this moment? Anytime you are resenting somebody, it is creating this illusion that you were powerless in that situation. And if you don't watch yourself, you're going to get caught in this limbo. It's kind of like the sunken place where you feel helpless and stuck and like you're in this like quicksand and you don't actually ever resolve the problem with that person. And the reason we do that, the reason we elect to feel resentful, number 1, sometimes it's hard to like be real with yourself and hold yourself accountable for what you could have done better. But number 2, it also feels self-righteous. It feels better and kind of addictive to judge other people and be angry at them and kind of like point your finger at what they did wrong to make you feel this way. If you're tired of feeling resentment, if you're tired of feeling helpless, understand that feeling that is just a sign that something needs to change. You either need out of that relationship or you need to hit your girl up and tell her what's bothering you. If you try to do that and don't like how she responds, you are absolutely entitled to get the hell out of that relationship. Nobody's forcing you to stay in a situation that doesn't work for you. So if you're bending over backwards, or if you're offering her your last French fry, like I said in this last video, you can't be mad when you're hungry. You can't. You can't be mad that you're still hungry when you decided to offer her your last French fry. You can't be mad that your back is hurting when you decided to bend over backwards. Do something about it. Number 2, bad bitches need boundaries too. Bad bitches especially need some boundaries, because when you're a bad bitch, people, they want to try you more. Like, you're just more interesting. So they want to be around you more, but you need to remind people more often that they can't just come around doing and saying whatever around you, that there are some, rules that need to be set into place, if you will, for them to occupy space with a bad bitch. One thing I want to say here is homegirls need for people responding to her at a cadence and consistency, like I said, that she desires, is not more worthy of compassion than my need, for example, to be left the hell alone. I know that sounds so harsh, but like, on a real note, someone's need to have a friend who texts her whenever she texts or calls right back or, answers her first phone call is not more worthy of compassion or valid than my need to show up when I want to show up. Somebody's need to hang out with their friends every week is not more valid than your need to take space in alone time. Someone's need to have the clubbing friend is not more valid than your need to stop going to the club. Like, it just means, once again, you guys might not be the most compatible, and that is okay. Just because our boundaries as the more distant or avoidant or whatever person may feel more mysterious or maybe even elusive doesn't mean we have any less right to have those boundaries. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that when it comes to relationships, anyone has the right to draw whatever boundary they want. Like, think of the most messed up, even offensive boundary. Every single person has the right to draw whatever boundary they want. But, and this is a big but, a fat ass, okay? A big, big, big but. The other person also has the right to decide that your boundaries are too restrictive and they want to take their friendship elsewhere. That is pretty much, like, I could really end the video here. That's pretty much all I've been trying to say. I'm allowed to say that I don't text on business days. And, weekends, I text between the hours of 10 a.m. and noon. I'm just joking. But like, if I wanted to say that, I could. But I also need to be okay with people not wanting to be my friend, because that's just a weird thing to say. And the other thing I want to say is, like, I'm weird. Like, I don't know if you've caught on, but I'm weird. Like, really, like, I'm not normal. And I think that I was so scared to talk about all of this in the past because I felt like people would think I'm weird. But now that I think I'm weird and I'm like just coming to terms with it, I don't care if people think I'm weird. I actually feel understood when people think I'm weird. But like, my boundaries will not make sense to you, but they make sense to me. And that's all I want for you, my love. Like, they don't need to make sense to other people. But if they make sense to you, you're not going to care as much when they don't make sense to other people. And if it bothers you that your boundaries are not understood, like, it should and will bother you when your boundaries are not respected. But when those boundaries are respected but are just not understood and it bothers you, that's a sign that you don't even feel aligned with those boundaries. Or maybe not aligned, but you just don't feel resolved in those boundaries. And that is a sign that you need to sit down and better understand yourself and why your body or your spirit is asking you to have certain guards up or to have certain rules for yourself that are in place. You need to understand those, because once you get right with those, it really won't matter whether they make sense to anybody else. This actually brings me to rule number 3, which is nobody is entitled to shit, including you. you are not entitled to other people understanding you. They're also not entitled, like I just mentioned, to understanding why you have the boundaries that you have. This whole like entitlement thing, it drives me crazy because I really feel like one of my most redeeming qualities is that I'm an unentitled person. I don't walk in the room feeling entitled to certain things. I don't think I came out of the womb feeling entitled to certain things. Like when quote unquote bad things happen, I never felt like mad at God. Like, why did you do this to me? Or I've never asked like, why me or why not me? I've never had that mentality. And I do think that that has really changed the way, that's why I say I'm weird. Like, I really think that that changes how I show up in relationships in ways that other people can't really resonate with. This really came through for me when I had a falling out, I guess, with one of my childhood friends. And it was during the most difficult by far period of my life. And I felt this intense need to just be alone. And specifically, I will be honest, be distant from her. I felt this like, and I couldn't explain it. I just knew that that's what I needed at the time. And honestly, at this point in my life, I was a major people pleaser. So trust me when I say that if I could have explained why, I would have. I just couldn't. I didn't have the words to explain it. I was just going day by day off of what I felt. But what was so annoying was that she kept pestering me to explain myself in the most kind words possible. I kept trying to explain why I couldn't explain. Like I just didn't have the words for why I needed time, but I just needed time and space. And that's what I was asking for. And when I wasn't getting that, I did get mad because I felt like this sense of entitlement. Like, who told you that you own me? Like, you don't own me. And again, as a rebellious person, I don't like to feel like people are controlling me. I don't like to feel guilted or shamed into doing something, which I actually think makes me a beautiful friend or person to be in a relationship with. Because if I'm doing something, it's because I'm doing it from my heart, because I want to do it. Because I don't respond well to people telling me that I have to show up a certain way, and I don't show up that way. I actually rebel against what you want. And so if I'm feeling like you're trying to infringe upon my space and time that I requested, I'm going to make sure I get my space and time. Let's just put it that way. And it wasn't until the dust really settled with that situation that I realized like I didn't even have to explain anything to her. Sure, would it have been a nicer thing to do? Would it have been a more compassionate and empathetic thing to do? Absolutely. I love to give to people when I don't feel they feel entitled. And I know you're probably the same. It feels so much better to give someone something that you know they're going to be 100% grateful for than to give someone something that they were low-key feeling entitled to. And I always love to pressure test these almost harsh or radical beliefs against myself. And when I think of friendships that I've had where things have fallen off, or the person kind of low-key like slow ghosted me, did it hurt my feelings? Absolutely. Did I question everything? Absolutely. Did it make me feel confused? All of the above. Like I felt all of those things. And this is not me at all questioning someone's right to have complicated feelings when there's like a friendship breakup. But did I actually and truly feel entitled to any of those things? Absolutely not. I never felt for 1 second that I was owed something from that person. Did it make me maybe not want to be close to them moving forward? Yeah. And that's okay. That's what I hope they feel. Like if I'm distant from you and I choose not to be close to you anymore, I would hope for your own self-respect and your own boundaries that you think twice before re-engaging in a relationship with me. Do you feel like you can write me an IOU, like an emotional IOU? No, you can't. It's going to get returned back to sender. I don't owe you anything. Nobody owes anybody anything. This might be the harshest one of them all, but it is a core belief that I hold. And the ironic part about it is now that I live my life this way, it sets me up to be 100% grateful for the things that I do have, because I don't take them for granted. I don't feel that these things are just inevitably supposed to be here. I feel like they're here for a good reason, and I should therefore really cherish them and pay attention to them while they are here. The sooner that you realize that really nobody owes you anything, the more grateful you're going to start to feel for whatever they decide to give. Which brings me to number 4, true reciprocity. has no strings attached to it. So I remember in college, one of my friends, he opened the door for this girl as we were walking to class, and she like walked through and didn't say thank you, didn't really even acknowledge him. And he got really mad. Like he literally started cussing, not at her, but like after she walked away, he was like, what the hell? I wish I didn't open the door for her, blah, blah, blah. Who does that? He just went on. And again, me being the friend that is not going to tell you what you want to hear, I'm like, she didn't ask you to open the door for her, which I know was like kind of insensitive at the time, but he just went like, he was really going off on her and it kind of annoyed me. I'm like, no, like really, you didn't open the door for her so that you could get a thank you, did you? He's like, no, I opened it because that's just what, like I wanted to. I'm like, okay. So if you opened it because that's what you wanted to do, and if she didn't ask you to do that for her, then you really don't have a right to be mad at her. And look, could he think she's rude? For sure. Could he never want to open the door for her ever again after that? I would imagine so. Like, I kind of hope he doesn't. But it kind of taught me this lesson about reciprocity, which is if you give something and then try to dictate how that is reciprocated, you are almost always setting yourself up for resentment. I have a core belief that everything that I give to the world is going to be reciprocated. But I don't sit and try to dictate where and from who and how it's going to be reciprocated. In trying to prevent resentment, because we all feel it, I think about things a little bit differently. Like I don't open a door because I'm expecting a thank you. When they say thank you, is that great? Of course it's great. It's human connection. Like it makes me feel good. But I would have opened the door regardless because I'm investing an act of kindness into a world that is going to meet me as a more kind place to live. That's how I feel like reciprocity works. I'm trying my best to, when I buy someone a gift, not do it just so I can see this reaction. And if they don't react that way, then it's going to make me feel not as good about buying it. I used to be like that. Like in my mind, it's like, I'm going to get this gift. It's kind of like a auditioning for love thing where I've built up in my imagination a reaction that I'm hoping to get in exchange for this thing. And when people don't react in the exact way that I wanted them to, it would make me feel very like, I would kind of feel like I got cheated. And again, because I have the views of resentment that I have, I would always take that back and ask myself, what happened there? Like, where did this fall off? And I realized that it's kind of manipulative. Like for you to give someone something and try to dictate what you're getting in exchange, you're not really giving something. Like that's super transactional and also kind of manipulative. You're kind of trying to control the way people interact with you by you doing something. Like this isn't a math equation. People are unpredictable and people have a million reasons why they act or don't act the way that they do. And another thing about reciprocity is I've really tried to not give things that I don't actually feel ready to give, because that's another thing that can happen is I'm very generous. A lot of Arabs are also like this. If you tell me you like this jacket, it will take so much effort in me to not take it off and give it to you. And I've realized, because I'm trying to step more into someone who truly believes that reciprocity has no strings attached, if I do that for you over and over and over and you don't reciprocate that, it's going to start making me feel taken advantage of. And that's because when you think about it, I love this jacket. I didn't actually truly want to give it to you. I gave it to you because I thought that that's what I was supposed to do culturally. Like that's something, there's a saying that we say in Arabic, which when someone tells you like, wow, your necklace is gorgeous, you say m'addame, which I don't know the exact translation to m'addame, but it's basically like, it's yours, you could have it. And most Arabs know not to take you up on it. So that's the other thing. If they do take you up on it, they will reciprocate. So embedded in our culture is kind of this expectation of reciprocation. And I won't say that that's transactional because it's not like they're going to go buy you the same exact necklace. Like if you cover the bill, which we always do, they're going to find a way to make sure they cover the bill next time. It's kind of this ingrained thing within our culture. But I think that that becomes problematic when you're trying to dictate the exact way in which something gets reciprocated. I'm trying my best to really ingrain myself in the belief that if I do something for you, it's because I was ready to do that and I'm okay with you not doing anything for me. Because what I believe in when it comes to reciprocation is not that you need to return the favor, but it's actually that God will return my deed tenfold. It doesn't have to come from you. It can come from someone else. Maybe your child does something for my child and I don't even know about it. Like whatever it is. That was such a random example given I don't have kids. But like the point is that it doesn't have to be so linear. Lately, another thing I've been doing is I've been trying to do deeds that nobody knows about. And the reason I love doing that is not an unselfish reason. It's actually kind of selfish. It's to remind me that reciprocity has no strings attached. Because if I'm doing it without anyone knowing that I'm doing it, then of course there are no strings attached other than to God, because no one else can trace that string back to me. It helps me solidify this belief that whatever I give to anyone is going to inevitably be returned back to me tenfold. And I have to be open to how that's going to show up. There's this saying that my dad used to say, I think it's from the Quran actually. The saying was, if you're going to give with your right hand, your left hand should not even know about it. And the idea behind it obviously is if you're giving, whether it's to charity or doing somebody a favor, you should be so focused on the deed and not on the recognition of the deed, that you should be so discreet with that even your left hand should not even know that you're doing it. And honestly, I just love that. I mean, there's just so much wisdom in that. I don't live by that 90% of the time. Like most of the times I'm doing things like I'm putting my name on it. I'm getting you a birthday gift or I'm helping you with something. I'm obviously not like freaking shouting it on the rooftops. I think there's levels to it as well. But I love it because it challenges me to really, really think about the integrity of the acts that I'm doing. And so when it comes to friendships, I know it's so important to have friendships where there's give and take. And so my intention here in telling you that reciprocity should have no strings attached is not to go out and look for friendships where nobody's reciprocating anything. Like I'll be the first to tell you that I had a friend who literally I would pay for the bill every time. And I'm very generous, so I'm always going to offer to pay for the bill. But if I'm not seeing that reciprocated, yeah, it's going to feel like I'm being played. But at the same time, when you go back to what I'm saying here, after the third or fourth time I did it, and I was giving something that I didn't feel right about giving. And that's the whole point. I could have just said, let's split this one, even though that's so cringe in my culture. But in my mind, I was setting myself up for resentment with this friend because I was giving something that I didn't feel good about giving after the third or fourth time. And she's not asking to reciprocate it back. And so my point here is not that you should not expect any reciprocation. It's that you need to take ownership of the fact that you continuously give and give and give, bend over backwards, and then your back starts hurting. So 2 things here. Ask yourself, number 1, is this thing that I'm giving, this time, this energy, this advice, this help on a English paper, this money, this gift, is it something I feel ready to give this person? And a follow-up to that, number 2, am I doing this with strings attached? AKA, am I gifting them this or doing this thing for them so that they can later scratch my back? If that's the case, just be honest with yourself about why you're actually doing it. 9 times out of 10, when you're doing something, expecting something reciprocated, like a specific reciprocal whatever, you're not going to feel good about doing it anymore. And in those cases, I do recommend you just don't do it. You're just not going to feel good about the transactional nature, but keep in mind, it's not always a physical thing that you're hoping to get in return. Sometimes it's approval. I want them to think highly of me. I am deciding to help them with this thing and extend time that I don't feel like I have so that they could be my friend. And then you are ultimately setting yourself up to resent that person. And then if there are things that you are expecting to be reciprocated and you're honest about that and you still feel good about doing it, then that can just serve as, I guess, I don't want to say a measurement or like a test, but that can just be a way to evaluate whether this is an aligned relationship or not. Not as a way to determine whether you should be mad at that person or resentful, but just as a way to reevaluate whether you guys are compatible. Which brings me to, I love how these always flow into each other on accident. Number 5, take responsibility for your failed friendships. I had to do this recently. I had to sit back and realize the same way that I'm out here telling people you are responsible for attracting the same man child over and over again, in these toxic relationships, you're also responsible for attracting the same kinds of dynamics in your friendships. Yes, if you are always the friend that's bending over backwards and constantly giving, you're responsible for the fact that you're constantly attracting people who just want to take. If you are attracting friendships like me, who people constantly think you're a bad texter, you're not a good enough friend, you're not showing up enough, you're not consistent, that's on me. Like I had mentioned earlier when we talked about the anxious avoidant trap, I was attracting people who wanted more from me than I was willing to give. I was attracting dynamics where I constantly felt like I was falling short. And I had to sit back and ask myself, as I just recommended with you, why would I want that? What am I believing about the world that's making me attract something that in reality I don't actually want? And I haven't fully processed this. This is something I'm still thinking about a lot. I think I wanted people around me who saw me in this very idolized light. I wanted people around me who pedestalized me. And mind you, this is me modeling what I'm recommending that you do. If you would have told the me from a year ago who didn't understand that I take responsibility for these things and that I'm always creating my reality, if you would have told me 1 year ago that I wanted people to idolize me or pedestalize me, I would have cussed you out. I would have been like, what do you freaking mean I want people to pedestalize me? That's exactly what I can't stand in my relationships. That's exactly what's always made me feel so much pressure and like I can't just be normal and I can't show up. Like I would have had a lot to say about that because it was something that I thought I consciously did not want, when in reality, subconsciously, I think my ego wanted people to see me in this pedestalized light. I didn't feel like I had permission to see myself as this great authority on certain things or someone worthy of respect or worthy of praise. I didn't feel that about myself. I didn't feel like I had permission to be so confident. So I wanted to assemble people around me who saw me in this really romanticized light. And I'm telling you, it's hard for me to say this out loud because basically what I'm saying now is all of the fallouts that have made me feel like absolute shit. They've made me feel guilty. They've made me feel inadequate. They've made me feel like a bad friend. And in a lot of cases, even a bad person. I'm basically saying that I did that. I attracted that. And it's true. I did attract that. And so now the real work starts where it's like, okay, I can see how I attracted that, because if I was attracting people who didn't necessarily idolize me, then they wouldn't be dying to talk to me all the time. They wouldn't be demanding that I give them advice at a certain time because they could be independent without me. They don't need me to sign off on something, a decision in their life before they make it. I know this sounds crazy, but I have to be real. So now that I realize that I was attracting that, I'm in a perfect position to take more ownership of that and really decide on what I want my friendships to look like moving forward. Number 6 is to change and change often. If you watched my last video, I talked about how I reserve the right to become unrecognizable AF at any given point in time. And it's funny because I had this ex who literally took pride in the fact that he never changed. He told me one time that his biggest fear in a relationship was waking up and not really recognizing the person next to him. And I remember in my mind, I'm like, wow, we should not be together, because I really admire people who have lived several lifetimes in one body. Those are the people that I look up to. Those are the people that I admire. And it reminds me of that Jhené Aiko song where she says, I think it's called Wanderer, where she says, shame on me for changing. No, shame on you for staying the same. And I'm obviously not here to shame anyone, but I do believe I am personally incompatible with people that are not changing and changing often, because I am changing at a rapid rate and I literally do not recognize who I was last year. To me, that's the most amazing way to live a life, is to have the courage to disagree with your past self, to have the courage to look back and be like, I don't even know who that was, but still love that past version of yourself. Don't get me wrong, but to just allow yourself the permission constantly to evolve into something completely unrecognizable from who you were before. And then from there, go out into the world and still be open to love, but then also recognizing that some people, even those relationships that you've kind of collected throughout your life, some people will no longer be compatible to the person that you're becoming. To me, that's just life. And I feel like that is the most romantic thing ever, is when you can continually be compatible even as you evolve into so many versions of yourself. To me, that's true unentitled love. And those are the kinds of values that I have for a friendship. Which brings me to, last but not least, rule number 7, which is that forever is so dramatic and so unlikely. You're not going to like this one, but this is why I say I'm weird, because of things like this. So I had this friend group when I was in middle school, and we were super close. Like, you couldn't tell us anything. We had our own little name. We were so bougie. Like, our 8th grade graduation, like, it's not even a graduation. Our 8th grade little promotion into high school, we got this limo. We branded the invitations to the limo, and we invited all our little girlfriends. And like, sometimes we would go to the lunchroom and we'd get this like Mrs. Fields cookie cake and brand it with our initials. And we were just those girls, right? And we were super close. We would hang out in my basement all the time. We would just sit and get all emo and like in our feelings. And I remember one of us asked the question, one of my 3 friends, she was like, do you guys think we're going to be friends forever? And like, without even batting an eye, I literally was like, no, I don't think we're going to be friends forever. And they're like, what? Like, they got kind of offended, but also laughed because I guess they were used to me. And I'm like, you guys, like, stuff happens. We're going to high school. You're going to a different high school. Life happens. And I'm not saying I don't want to be friends forever. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if we weren't friends forever. It's crazy because, I mean, we weren't friends forever, but one of those girls I actually am still very close friends with. She's literally like my longest time best friend. And the only reason I believe that we're still so close is because each of us has evolved into like 10 different versions of ourselves since that girl in my basement in 8th grade. And I think that that's what really has led to us staying so close. Forever is not this like sexy romantic idea for me unless it's not forced. Then it becomes very sexy for me. Like, I am in love with the idea that Ahmed and I chose each other, and that for the next several decades, we are going to continue to choose each other. But I'm very well aware of the fact that I'm only 31 and that I will evolve into 20 million different versions of me before my time comes up. And to me, what's more romantic than us staying together if we're incompatible is looking at my parents' relationship and seeing a couple that has changed so much since they got married in their teens and decided to continue to choose each other. That is why I say forever is so dramatic and very unlikely, is because to me it feels even more beautiful and romantic to be in the unlikely, because I understand that it's not always in our control. We can certainly have the intention to be together forever, and then life can happen several times over. And all I'm saying is that I'm well aware of that. And that, I guess for me, I don't value time more than I value alignment. Like, I've been impacted by some Uber ride conversations, like the one I had yesterday, more than long-time friendships or relationships that I've had in my life. Like, time to me is not as important as alignment and compatibility. And that's something I really think is important when looking at friendships. Like, do I love the idea of having a friend like the one I just mentioned who has watched me grow up? Yes, I do. But like I said, I don't value time more than I value alignment. And that's why I value her so much. She happens to have both. To be honest, the past few years have been characterized by a lot more distance when it comes to friendships than what I'm used to. And they were so necessary and very like intentional on my part, because I feel like I needed time to understand exactly what got me here as the quote unquote bad friend, and how to start recreating the kinds of bonds and friendships that I want. And the freaking funniest thing has happened, that since I put that intention out, wanting people that feel like, you know, how I felt in my basement in 8th grade, minus like the hormones and the immaturity, my past 3 weeks have been filled with more social connections that really just came out of nowhere than my past 3 years of living here. which is so wild that I think in me really putting that out there, but also more importantly, resolving a lot of the pent up shame and guilt and maybe even resentment that I had, I was therefore able to open my energy and start attracting and taking ownership of the kinds of friendships and bonds that I want more of. So I will let you know how this goes. Your girl is an introvert, but I've been extroverting hard. I have Friday lunch plans. I have Friday night plans with someone. I have Saturday plans with another friend. Oh, and tomorrow's Thursday. I have a friend coming over tomorrow. Bruh, that's a lot. That's literally, I'm telling you, more in like 3 days, more social interactions in LA since I've moved here in like the end of 2021, which is crazy. But yeah, let me know if you're down to try this. And as usual, my love, I'm not going to tell you to like or subscribe. I know you hear that more than enough. But what I will tell you is that if this spoke to you, bring a friend next time. Hopefully more friends, since this video will help you manifest more aligned friendships. On a serious note, let's leave people even more powerful than we found them. I love you so much, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.